Hi, welcome. I'm Zara Altair, and this is Mystery Monday. And this is a place where we chat about mysteries, writing mysteries, and, fine tuning what it takes to write a mystery. So, today we're going to talk about characters and secrets because your sleuth your sleuth needs a lot of problems in order to engage your readers. And so one of the parts of the craft of writing a mystery is misdirecting the sleuth. And characters are really important in doing that. So how do you do that? The challenge is to make virtually every character look guilty in some way, sometime during your story, um, because because your readers like those challenges to your sleuth. So there are a number of ways that you can do that. So I thought I'd just go through some of the ways that you can fine-tune your characters to give your sleuth some problems. So one of them is having an obvious motive. That character inherits the victim's estate or their business, or wanted the victim as a partner and they were spurned, or was being blackmailed by the victim, or had been jilted by the victim. Just some obvious way that looks like they would have a perfectly good motive for getting rid of the victim. Another way is, for whatever reason, there's some kind of vanishing act. The character can't be found when the sleuth comes to question him. And there are really a lot of ways that you can make that happen. They didn't know they're on vacation. They went for a wild weekend with their boyfriend, whatever. But when the sleuth goes to talk to them, they're just not available. He can't find them anywhere. Another way is actually when the sleuth is talking to them, they're stonewalling. The character can't remember, or he refuses to tell where they were at the time of the murder. Could be for any reason, but he just stonewalls and your sleuth can't get any answers from them. Another way is contradictory behavior. So a character claims to be clueless about guns, but all of a sudden there's an NRA membership card in his wallet. Or a character claims to be in love with the victim, but was having an affair with somebody else. So are you beginning to see how this works? And for those of you who just joined, I'm Zara Altair, and this is Mystery Monday, and we're talking about ways that you can cause problems for the sleuth in a mystery by giving the other supporting characters ways to make it more complicated. So we talked about the vanishing act and stonewalling and contradictory behavior. And also there's eavesdropping, where the characters overheard threatening the victim like just drop dead, or or something like that, where they've presented something menacing to the victim and it's overheard. Um, and then there's the over eager answers. Boy, this person actually is proactive and goes to the investigator and provides tons of information that implicates somebody else. But only some of the information turns out to be the truth. This is a great way to send your sleuth off on an exploration that comes to naught. And another way is that character they have a bad reputation. They're known to be a liar. They lie all the time to everybody about anything. Or they're a swindler, or, something like someone has a compulsion, like being a kleptomaniac. Anyway, for some reason, they have a bad reputation. And then another way is that supporting character is guilty by association. They hang out with unsavory characters, or they're married to someone who really truly hated the victim, but some way they're associated so that they become suspect. Or they were previously suspected of a very similar thing. So they were convicted, but they claim they were innocent. And then there's the skeleton in the closet. No one knows, but the character was once or still is a compulsive gambler, a pedophile, an alcoholic, a drug addict. They have something they want to hide, and as the sleuth discovers this, they become more suspect. And another way is a crack in their veneer. So somebody who presents as stunningly beautiful or totally reliable does something that seems out of character. So they kick a dog, or they slap a child, or takes their heel and grinds a valuable piece of jewelry into the ground. Something that just seems out of character for what we've known about that character so far. And these are just starters that you need to give the character a secret. And then you're going to balance the lies that they tell to cover up these things. So, say you have the beautiful woman who slaps the child, and then what lies is she going to come up with to explain her behavior or try to cover up her behavior? Or it was just a one-time thing. I lost my temper. Oh, you have a temper. So we discover things about that. So all these supporting characters come together to confound your sleuth in some way. So that is basically what I wanted to talk about today. And then last night I just finished reading Elizabeth George, The Punishment She Deserves. And Elizabeth George is a master at um, presenting these character flaws and difficulties and secrets um, in a way that keeps you wondering, was it really that person? They seem like they're okay, but um, as things unfold, it they more and more secrets are presented. Okay, and then the other day I was watching writer Chris Fox. He actually writes science fiction fantasy, but he was talking about the 4 pillars of character. So this is how you build your character and then add those secrets. So first of all, the character needs to be sympathetic in some way. Now, that doesn't mean you have to like the character. It means that your readers have to get into that character and know enough about them so that they feel they know the character. And then the character needs to take action. That's what's going to move your story forward, especially scene by scene when you're constructing your scene, when there's action. And then what motivates the character, their motivation. So this is tied into all those secrets for the supporting characters. It's we dig deeper and we find what seems like their motivation. As we dig deeper, we discover what their true motivation is. So there are a lot of layers that you can add with motivation. And then the last one, this is especially important for your main characters, like your protagonist, and for your villain or your perpetrator, is some kind of growth, some kind of change that they experience. And then I was very, very sorry to hear that one of my favorite writers, Philip Kerr, died this week. I know I was a Bernie Gunther fan, and I know there are a lot of others who are, and I read a number of his other stories as well. He was quite a prolific writer, and some lost to the writing community. Okay, so then I have a couple of questions so far. So please put your questions in the chat, and I can answer them for you. So the first question is, my story is set in my hometown, and I read that research is really important to a novel. So why do I need to research if it's my hometown? Well, as you construct a story, details make a difference. I mean, that's a really good question, because it feels like it's really easy. Oh, I won't have to do any research. I know my hometown. But as you start writing the story, you're going to find that you're going to need some details. So you may create a mythological shop, one that doesn't really exist in your town, but you've created it, and you're looking at local places for examples. So say it's a local antique shop, and they have quirky hours like being closed on Thursday afternoon. Well, this is just the kind of detail that can really put a little zip or ping into your story, because most shops are open on Thursday afternoon, and you can build on details like that. So it's kind of fun to go walking around and checking things out and looking at that. And then if you're near the ocean, just being aware of high and low tides. Um, I don't know. I'd have what I call, the P.D. James Trail, where they're out, out there somewhere. What was Sir Redford doing out at midnight on the trail? And high and low tides can hide footprints. So you may want to know things about that are in your area. And then one of the other things that you need to know is how long it takes to get from place A to place B, um, and traffic conditions, and is your character on foot, and all of that sort of thing, and time and distance. Um, Michael Connolly does a great job with this, and Harry Bosch driving around LA. And I know when I was in Ravenna doing research, not my hometown, by the way, but doing research, I timed my distance walking from place to place to place, all the places that people would go, from the palace to the hippodrome, from the palace to the bishop's palace. Um, so I really had a good sense of the time it took to get from one place to another. So if someone is walking and they're talking to another character in your story, then you know about how long that conversation can be, depending on how long it's going to take them to get from one place to another. It's that simple. But just because your story is set in your hometown, you are probably going to end up needing to do some research about the details in your story. You don't want to overload with details, but you need to know those details so everything makes sense within your story. And then this question is about background for my story. So it was a reader. His name was Wolf. He said, regarding historical research, how come that Theodoric asked the East Roman Emperor for permission to rule Italy after he had dethroned the West Roman Emperor? There were two separate empires at the time. Well, yes, there were. There was the Western and the Eastern Roman Empire. But actually, the last emperor, Augustus, another Augustus, had been dethroned by Odoacer many years before the story. So what happened was that Theodoric was invited by the emperor to come to Italy and depose Odoacer. So he came to Italy. He actually got to Ravenna, where Odoacer was, and actually it took a long time. It took a couple of years because Ravenna was a walled city and it was hard to get in. But actually, they had two men got in a boat and floated down the river. The river ran right through the town then, not now, but then. The river ran right through the town. They floated under the gates and got into the city and went and opened the gates so that Theoderic's army could get in. So, Wolf, thanks for that question. And yeah, I do have a lot of fun writing the stories, and I hope that answered your question. Okay, so for anyone who just joined, I'm Zara Altair, and this is Mystery Monday. Please add your questions to the comments and anything about mystery writing, anything like that. And then finally, I wanted to give an example of how a supporting character, is introduced in a story and what clues the sleuth notices at the beginning. And this is from Helen McInnes, whom I just love. And her first story is called Above Suspicion. So the main character is Frances, and she's there with her husband Richard, and they're actually touring in Germany. And there's an American that they've met, but they don't know much about him. They met because she actually accidentally stepped on his foot with her high heel. So they meet again, and Frances says, "By the way, we don't know your name yet. We can go on just calling you the American." The man smiled. Thank goodness, thought Frances. He gave up the idea I was trying to reprimand him. He was searching in his pocketbook for a card. "This makes it easier," he said. He was, they read, Henry M. Van Cortlandt from Altair, New York. He was, he said, a newspaperman originally working in New York City, but now on an assignment in Europe, looking for symptoms. War? Richard asked. Well, perhaps that. What do you think? Frances looked at the well-cut features opposite her and the well-brushed fair hair. The jaw was determined. The slightly down eyebrows gave a certain intensity. You would hardly notice the color of his eyes. It was as if the other features of his face overshadowed them. His skin was tanned. If it hadn't been tanned, it might have seemed pale, even sallow. He had gone on talking without waiting for Richard's reply, and he talked well, with a fluency which showed he had either thought about his subject a lot or had already argued it into a neat pattern. As he talked, he smiled a good deal, showing very white, even teeth, but in repose his mouth looked firm, even tight-lipped. Frances watched him as she listened to the well-tailored phrases. He was very direct, a very controlled, and a very impulsive young man. And it turns out that this young man is going to present more questions about his character, but what she notices about him and his demeanor is very important to the story. And he is hiding a secret. But that's how we kind of first are introduced to him. So I don't see any more questions. And I want to thank everybody for being here today and for watching. And I hope you will send me questions because I love talking about mysteries and I love helping other writers. So thanks so much for joining me, and I'll be live next Monday, every Monday at noon Pacific time. So I really encourage you to join me and send me questions beforehand, and I will add them to the queue. So thanks so much.